Flight boss, bitch. You know, for sure. You're now listening to the Mind of an Antares Moon. I am the Royal Archangel Uriel, and I'm here to carry out God duties and motherfucking responsibilities. And flight morning, everybody. And for the most part, this video right here is going to be about Apologetics 101. Now, y'all know I got a lot of themes and a lot of motherfucking series. So, you know, this video right here is more for theologians. So I know a lot of people who probably watch my channel may not be too far into this. But, you know, my channel span broadly. So for the most part, this is going to be more for those individuals. But like I said, this is Apologetics 101, and we're going to get into the hypostatic union or the federal headship and how to understand the correct way of interpreting things. So you don't get lost in 2,000-year-old arguments. And even if you are lost into a 2,000-year-old argument because you're part of a denomination, you're Protestant, or you're clinging on to some type of aspect, even hearing my interpretation, and I hate to even call it my interpretation because it's just the right way to see it, it's still going to make more sense in some way, shape, or form. So you're just going to find yourself with your spiritual back against the wall defending something that you was given to by a demon based upon logic or Lucifer or lactitude or something you have been lost in based upon a desire. So let's get it in. So, Apologetics 101, we're going to start to talk about the hypostatic union, right? Now, here's the thing. Before we even get into this, here's one of the arguments that theologians who utilize apologetics and logic and science like to use as far as part of their curriculum when they're having debates and things of that nature, right? So, they want to say when a person is looking at God like three separate beings and saying, is Jesus God or is Father to God or whatever like that, they want to say no. And then they want to say that this was practiced or keyword practice rituals, whatever like that, taught logic, but it was taught that God was just one being with three persons in some way, shape, or form. So they get lost into separatism or Saturn or Septuagint energy based upon Hebrew and Greek lostness. Now, here's the thing. Because for some reason they think God's word came in Greek or came in Aramaic or some shit like that, where these are just men and women who's coming up with things, and these people are saying we should worship these old men and women's visions about something because they don't understand how you create a language in the first place based upon a system of understanding symbolism and add an allegory to it. Numerology, gematria, that's another video. Coming to the calculation of star numbers. Now here's the thing, if you don't know how to draw out a star number in a Bible based upon the passage that you're reading, you already don't know nothing spiritually about the Bible. You already lost in man's words. So you're getting the wrong interpretation based upon you trying to take your own discernment away and have somebody else's feelings about these things take over your mind. And now you have got practice witchcraft on and thinking you are talking outside of yourself instead of receiving messages through the material or the form or the matter that the realm of reality that you live in at the moment. That's a whole nother video. But like I said, right? Once we start to talk about them getting lost with their 2,000-year-old arguments of trying to convey to everyone or try to convince to everyone that God is one being with three persons, here's why they always get this wrong. Because here's the thing, right? When a person come in, especially Archangel Uriel, you're hearing it from the horse's mouth. When I tell you that Adam and Eve is part of God's natures, so Adam will be God's masculine side and Eve will be God's feminine side, and the tree that the snake is slithering on will be the living tree, aka the actual flesh, the body that those lights derive in as God's mentalities, Adam's and Eve's masculine and feminine sides of itself. They would come into this and say, no, that's wrong. Adam and Eve was actually the first individuals. And then this is when we get into federal headship, where Adam is supposed to be the head. But that takes us in phallic religion. But when I say phallic religion, they may not even know my ground basis of why I say that. So they get into plagiarism or paganism or other concepts with different words and think that they're not doing these things. They think that they're not into phallic religion. But here's the thing. Once you start to understand the hypostatic union, this is understanding God's nature and the relationship between God's nature and its human nature, or the divine nature and the material nature, or the matter nature, or the human nature, or the man nature, which is man is a different interpretation for light, masculine light, woman is a different interpretation for feminine light, below the horizon. If you understand Jewish mysticism before you take their ideology and think you got the right word of something that they made up. So that's another video also. But here's the thing, right? Once you get into the hypostatic union, understanding God's natures, or the divine nature between the human characteristics or the lower natures and things of that nature, then that helps you understand the federal headship. So that virtue or principle becomes the federal headship. So under that virtue and principle, you understand your spiritual natures between your human nature, right? Now, here's the thing, right? That'll lead you, if you are lost in religion, right, in dogmatism, that'll lead you into somebody telling you you need to do some research on the communicatum communicatum. Now I might be saying this wrong, but it's Latin for lostness, aka is Latin for communicating or releasing a passage or something like that, right? So it's basically just a different term for some English Bible, right? But here's the thing, communicatum communicatum, a different term for a relationship or a communication between two objects in some way, shape, or form, right? Now, here's the thing, once you get lost into that, you would think that you got some type of higher knowledge or you got some extra interpretation that other individuals don't have. And now you're hearing it from the horse's mouth. This is why you're having 2,000-year-old arguments, because you're lost into separating and you're lost into words, where you need to understand that the communicatum communicatum, you don't need to read that, because if you understand the Bible clearly, then you'll understand the hypostatic union is the whole motherfucking Bible. The whole Bible is the relationship of God and its natures. So the reason why you get lost is because you're lost in the separatism. And then once you come up with your own interpretation that ain't even in the Bible, like federal headship and things of that nature, and the Trinity and stupid shit like that, here's where you get lost into man phallic brain, woman phallic mind, lost in separation. So you don't know how to combine the two. So when it comes to actually looking at just the Bible itself, without man's words, you actually see this is God relating to its natures, a being talking to itself. Adam and Eve and all of the descendants is God building on its body, and this is an individual dealing with itself. So all of the stories is going to be about how to go through internal war and how to fight the darkness with your light, aka masculine, externalizing fire. And that destroys any type of beast or animalistic nature that come out of your waters. Emotions, feelings you get attached to. So Eve will be emotions you get attached to. Adam will be the logic, the left brain that you add to it to justify it. And the tree and the snake represents your body and your flesh that those mentalities are in. And you as a spirit or a God or thy, an ascended spirit, or thee, a below spirit that then got lost into these things, supposed to understand equilibrium to decipher these energies. So all stories is going to be the root cause of trying to separate from a desire in some way, shape, or form. Whether you think you're talking outside of yourself and this book is really about a spirit that created the whole world, or you're understanding it from this is a book about somebody's visions about something that we have all did and what we all constantly go through, because teamwork makes the dream work, and it's a better way of how to analyze or understand virtues and principles. So if we was to make a book about the Bible, if we was to make a movie about the Bible, it would be as light can talk, and different lights in different circumstances talk and think and move differently. So we're talking about virtues and principles that manifest into physical matter in some way, shape, or form before you think this is an actual history book. So it's putting you in a circumstance of understanding you don't need the communicatum communicatum, because all you need is the goddamn Bible to understand the combination, or how to understand the relationship between God and God's lower natures, or the divine energy and the lower energies in some way, shape, or form, what you want to call humanity or the beast or the human natures. So when you hear Jesus being the flesh, being the flesh of God, and that person walked on earth or whatever like that, here's another lost argument and things of that nature, because they'll sit here and argue and say, no, Jesus was God in flesh, but Jesus wasn't God, or Jesus wasn't the Father. See, you're getting lost again. And this is why people can make arguments like, okay, Jesus was God in flesh. Jesus was the fleshly body. You know what I'm saying? And then for the most part, the Father was the mentality, or the Jupiter, or the enlightenment, or where it was going to ascend to once the light leave. And then God was the actual spirit that was in it. Same way you are a spirit within your body with masculine and feminine natures. So your mentality will be your masculine natures. Your feminine daughters and men will be your feminine natures that receive that light onto itself. Now, here's where they even get lost, because they don't understand it from a Gnostic or esoteric level. Jesus was never even meant to be talking about the flesh as in the daughters of men version of it yet. The body of it. The first flesh is less dense, light in weight, aka as in mass. So this talking about the light form. This is the first flesh you get lost into. Your mentality, your thoughts. So your Jesus is your individuality. So once it starts to talk about it in this aspect from a Bible, it's talking about it from a 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensional aspect. And you probably got lost by me saying 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension if you're too religious out. So you probably got all kind of arguments and brain fogs that got firmaments to block you to be open enough to understand what angle that I'm talking about when I said that word. But for the most part, you're not intelligent enough. That's why. And here's the thing, though. You're indoctrinated. But at the same time, it's actually talking about the Jesus as it's being in flesh or walking on water as water being the emotions and feelings, and the light being the masculine, the thought and the feeling before it became condensed, you know what I'm saying, into water. So when you have a higher mentality over an emotional feeling that could get you washed up under the current and make you live chaotic, this is you walking on water. So this is an allegory story of being able to rise above, or Noah's Ark, or being able to not get washed up under and drown up under emotional trial and tribulation, or have a Job over your a Job cloud over your head. This is an allegory story about having a higher mentality or a higher thought form about a low vibrational circumstance. And I hate to use the word vibrational because they're going to say, oh, new agey and things of that nature, not understanding the true aspects of all of these words and terminologies is faulty and been used and put meanings behind for a reason. So you need to understand that first before you cast stones and use the very same Lucifer and demon and cast stones at someone else, so you're actually being a Satan yourself and trying to cast your world on other people. That's another video. But like I said, once you understand the relationship between the divine nature and the human nature, you'll be able to speak as if I'm speaking, and then I didn't even have to pull out a scripture. And I could have put out a scripture if I wanted to. Could have put out one if I wanted to, but then that's missing the point, because that's utilizing someone else's visions to understand what space that they was in to even have that vision and to come to the conclusion. So that's spirituality. Not getting lost in words, understanding all languages, and understanding all prayers. That's how you come to that conclusion, aka understanding the space that individuals was in to even come to the conclusion that they came to. So before you get lost in language, understand how language was created in the first place, based upon symbols and symbolisms of us tracking the stars and making star numbers and things of that nature. And based upon that, we could put meaning behind it. Numerology turn it into gematria. And then for the most part, now we put values and signs and symbols. Now we got street signs that say stop. You know what I'm saying? Now we got street lights that got green and yellow and red. Now you understand the meaning behind it. One means stops, one means yield, one means go. And then for the most part, motherfuckers is utilizing this shit to build the fucking world and build y'all minds and build y'all arguments. And that's another fucking video. But for the most part, like I said, before you get lost into a world's view, understand the right perspective of how you look at things. So once we start to talk about the hypostatic union and the federal headship, utilizing apologetics, this is how you guys get lost, because you are arguing lostness, where you just need to come to grips with the Bible is actually telling you that you don't need the communicatum, because the hypostatic union is actually telling you that the whole Bible is motherfucker God's relationship with his human natures. And if you stop trying to get lost into separateness and trying to separate all these deities and get lost in that energy itself, so you're playing out the virtues, but you think you're doing it for the right cause, aka that's witchcraft and mysticism from Jewish in the first place, then for the most part you will understand clearly and stop having dumbass arguments that Jesus, because therefore you won't be a Pharisee, because somebody could say they're Jesus right now, and then you'll be the first person who say, no, this ain't Jesus, yet you're still having arguments of how Jesus could walk the earth in some way, shape, or form. So you're living out a contradiction and you're living backwards, where you just need to come to grips with what makes sense. All right? And for the most part, what the book is about is an individual talking to themselves. So before you get all separate into the descendants and what Satan is, whatever like that, you need to know Satan and Lucifer is part of God's energy, and this is a book about God dealing with its internal self. So before you start to get lost into Jewish witchcraft and think you're talking outside of yourself, this is why you're fighting someone else's demons and manifesting so much trial and tribulations in your life. Flight boss, bitch, and I love you from the bottom of my heart, and you better believe it. And you heard it from the horse's mouth.